Israel is pounding northern Gaza. Its airstrikes described by the UN as relentless, with hundreds of Palestinians injured or killed this weekend. The death of the Hamas leader only heralding even more intense violence. There's no sign of talks on a ceasefire, no sign of a deal to release Israeli hostages. Instead, what looks like war without end. Save us from this place, says this man. And may God take revenge on every government official watching this. This airstrike flattened an entire block at midnight, leaving more than 80 people dead, though the Israelis dispute that figure and say Hamas was operating here. It felt like an earthquake, says this man. Then we heard the women and children screaming. Everyone killed had fled from other airstrike areas for safety. This war's official death toll of over 42,000 could be an underestimate, because there's no equipment to reach possibly thousands more trapped beneath concrete across the Gaza Strip. The injured were taken to this hospital, with many being treated on the floor. Health officials said that artillery and bullets had been fired just outside the hospital itself. Where's my brother? Asks this boy. Where's Sharif? I'm hungry and I want to eat. The Americans say Israel is taking steps to let more food in, but UN and other aid officials insist that the Israelis are still allowing almost none into the north.
While we did see a number of trucks that were able to enter Gaza Strip through the northern crossing points, those trucks have not been able to enter the sieged area. So the population in Gaza North, again, we're talking about around 100,000 people, has not had any food deliveries, any water deliveries, any fuel for more than 15 days.
This afternoon, another 4 Palestinians were reported killed. Israel still says all this is in the name of preventing Hamas from regrouping, while Hamas still says that any truce is conditional on a complete Israeli withdrawal. In the meantime, the world watches from a distance. But it cannot say it didn't see this. It cannot say it didn't know.
Well, our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Porrick O'Brien, is in southern Israel near the Gaza border. Porrick.
Kathy, as the crow flies, we're just a few miles from those awful scenes you saw in Jonathan's report. You can't see it now because it's dark, but earlier today we were standing here literally watching northern Gaza and Jabalia burn. It's the festival of Sukkot, where Jewish people remember the time the Israelites came out of Egypt, their 40-year sojourn in the desert where they lived under shelters on their way to the promised land. These Sukkots, these temporary shelters behind me are different though. This is about 200 settler families who are intent on setting up Jewish outposts inside Gaza once this war ends. It is incongruous. It is settler Glastonbury. On one side, the sounds of families celebrating. Literally on the other side, the sound of artillery and the sound of what will result in families dying. In between us, by the way, is Kibbutz Be'eri, where on October the 7th, hundreds of people slaughtered by Hamas. So the awful, tragic, traumatic geography of this place in just these few square miles.
Porrick, thanks very much. Well, Israel has also kept up its airstrikes on the Lebanese capital Beirut, where it claimed to have hit a Hezbollah intelligence headquarters. Our international editor, Lindsay Hilsum, is in Beirut now. Lindsay.
Kathy, that was an overnight strike. The Israeli Defense Forces released video showing them hitting what they say were the Hezbollah intelligence headquarters here in Beirut. Hezbollah has not said anything about that itself. They have continued to fire rockets into Israel. And also, Israel is attacking ever more intensely in the south. The footage which the Israeli military puts out shows them blowing up entire villages. The explosions are enormous. They say that they are getting rid of tunnels which Hezbollah had built underneath. Now, the difference between here and Gaza is, thank goodness, the people who live there have been able to flee. Unlike in Gaza, where there is nowhere for people to go. Here in Lebanon, people have been able to flee to the north. At least they are surviving. There are some Hezbollah fighters still in the south, clearly. But the question now is, if Israel obliterates all those villages down on the border, which it appears to be intent on doing, to create a buffer zone so that Hezbollah cannot be south of the Litani River in that 20-kilometer zone from which they fire a lot of rockets. If they destroy all those villages completely, and there'll be a lot of unexploded ordnance down there, the people will never be able to go back. So what we may be looking at here in Lebanon is a long-term crisis of displacement as people's houses are destroyed and they can never go home.